Hello.
Hey, we're almost done. Look, we got just a couple things.
Yeah.
So our topic today, I'm going to mute a couple people here just because we have some background noise. So if you're muted, just unmute yourself if you want to talk. So our topic today is the error rate during the transaction. And this came up last week because Janet is trying to figure this out and wanted some ideas from the group. And Janet, my thought was maybe you could share with the group kind of the feedback you've gotten so far, like your card that you've put together so far,
Oh,
so
sure.
that kind of see like what the goal is.
Okay, so we haven't actually made it to the actual card yet. We've just started taking notes. The TC and the listing manager have started taking notes on pretty much paperwork that is missing something, how many times they have to reach out, if there's bad communication, this and that and the other. And so we're trying to figure out, okay, at what point is this egregious and we need to, training, you can't do X before your training or this or that. And so one thing I did want to mention is that we met on this again yesterday. And one thing that they have been putting in that's kind of been helpful in looking at this is they've been putting like a rating of like, this is major or, avoidable, not avoidable. And then the other thing is that they've been kind of putting a category, kind of like, okay, this is communication, this is client care, so it's straight to the client. So that would be a bad one. Procedure, documentation, process. So we have a little bit of categorization going on. So I don't know further from that. The last thing that we were thinking is in trying to gain more information of making an assessment is we are going to try to set up a 10 to 15 minute Zoom with each agent after a transaction. And we'll talk about the things that we've seen. And we want them to talk to us and tell us, oh, it would have been really helpful if you did this, or I really could have used that, or whatever. And then also bring up reviews and referrals. So we're trying to kind of encompass things into one process and see if we can improve just overall. I think people don't know what each other does a lot of times. And so if they can hear it right from the staff based on details of the transaction, I think it's going to help us, but it's kind of just a nice idea right now. And maybe nobody has these issues, so that's also possible.
I think we all have these issues. It's just how are we identifying them and dealing with them? So I'm deep in this with Janet, so I really know what's going on. So I'd love to hear from you guys. Did you understand what Janet was just explaining and why she's going down on this journey?
What kind of errors, Janet, are you encountering on a regular basis right now that you're like notating?
Well, I mean, at this stage of the game, we've just barely started notating things. So it's just things, it might be we've had to communicate 3 or 4 times. You made these 3 mistakes on the offer. We had to fix this. You didn't get this right. That was wrong. This was documentation wrong. You did the process wrong. You shouldn't have contacted the client right now. Things like that. But really, it's a situation where I think that there are recurring things from agent to agent that we need to fix our process maybe a little bit on the backside so we don't keep having these same things. It's like, 3 out of the 10 agents do something this way or whatever. And we're not really realizing it at the time because the transactions are so spread out because we're not a high transaction number. We're just a high volume team. So we only do about 150 transactions a year, but our transactions are mostly luxury transactions. So they're really intensive when you're in there. And it's kind of gotten to the situation where you don't have time to really assess the file after. And so you're on to the next one. So it's kind of like, oh, I forgot about that already. But then, 6 months down the road, you're ready to ring 3 agents next because of this thing they're doing, but you don't have anything down in writing that says, hey, look, stop it or whatever. So that's kind of just trying to fix the backside so that the other side is not keep having a problem.
Is
So.
the error rate you're tracking the agent's error rate or the operations team?
Well, the operations team is the one that's keeping the stats, so it's all agent. Here's the thing. The fact of the matter is like, it's our job to make sure there's no errors. So we get that, but we need to teach them to be better. And so it's not going to be we decided it's not going to be accepted by any of the agents if we just say, yelling at them like, you did horrible on this. So the reason we're involving operations in the process of, hey, we want to help you, we want to do better, is so that they'll want to be part of the process, because otherwise we have no chance of improving it. So if they think we know we're not doing everything perfectly, then they're more happy to talk to us. So that's kind of why we feel like that's a better environment. So whether that's a good idea or not, I don't know.
So we don't do anything that formal, but I know our person that does all the tracking and does all the agent training sits in on the transaction sync with us once a week.
Oh.
And so that's kind of where we communicate if we're starting to see the same thing over and over again. And then we let her know, hey, I think they need training on this again.
Mm-hmm.
Like, hey, they're filling out this form wrong, or hey, we need to go back to this. We need to go back to what the definition of each lead is. Usually the problem is the people who are messing it up are the ones who either didn't come to the meeting where we were doing the training, or they were clearly not paying attention and screwing around while we were doing the training. But that, I mean, like, we don't have anything formal in terms of like tracking the percentage. It's more of a, when we kind of do our let's fix what's broken thing.
Yeah.
If there's one person consistently doing something, actually what my TC and listing manager do a lot of times they'll very like jokingly say to the agent, hey, if you do this one more time, I'm going to tell Angie and she's going to get out her teacher voice. And like they all joke about it. They're like, oh yeah, you don't want Angie's teacher voice. Like it doesn't come out very often, but
They're kind of calling them out in the meeting in a joking way.
Well, kind of one-on-one, like when they're doing their check-in calls of like,
Okay,
hey,
yeah.
Because my TC and listing manager on Monday have a check-in call with every agent
Yeah.
about where the
Okay.
transactions are.
See,
And
that's the thing.
Yeah.
I think that that's necessary. And that's why I'm suggesting to start this, we're going to have it after, but I think you're probably right. We need to be having it during the transaction or at the front of the transaction or something. That's a great,
Yeah. So
great
our
thing there.
the listing manager and the TC, basically we have meeting Monday, and they spend most of Monday on calls, and they pair up to do it with the agent. So it's like one call for the agent, both of them are on it. Now, if somebody doesn't have any listings coming soon or any active listings with the new agent, then they only meet with the TC and the listing manager can skip.
Okay, well, that's why you're not having the issues we're having when the transaction's over and the TC wants to, we have, I'm sorry, this is probably not appropriate for the group, but the TC says, okay, this year at the Christmas party, I'm going to give John a shock collar because she just wants to like push the button when she has to deal with him. So probably not appropriate, but it's funny for the staff. So
if she's keeping track of all the errors, has she thought about like printing off the documents that they frequently have errors with and like highlighting it? It's like filling them out and highlighting those places, and then like having like a group training session saying, hey guys, this is like on each of these forms, this is what we're seeing that we're missing. These are our frequently, missed items.
oh yeah,
And
that's
that way it's
exactly what we're planning to do. And so we've just started accumulating information, because before it was just like it'd be just verbal out.
Yeah.
We were not recording everything down. So it's like, okay, I'm not changing anybody's mind about anything unless this is down in writing somewhere and we know the details. So that's our first step. And so it's like, what else do we need to do? So some of these things of meetings and stuff, this is exactly what I need. So
Yeah, so we don't have our transaction coordinator in-house yet. But one thing that, so we use, they just changed the name. I think they're Hello Leverage now. They were Churchwell Group. But, you know, one thing that we're trying to coordinate with them is them coming in to our market center and actually teaching a class from the transaction coordinator's point of view of, look, guys, this is our frequently missed item.
Mhm.
That way, no one's singled out.
No,
And-
exactly.
And, you know, from the transaction coordinator side, they see, you know, just like we see all the issues on the operations side, they see all the issues and the holes and the gaps on the transaction side.
Yeah.
And that way, you know, everybody sits down, everybody talks about it, and, you know, and it could be like a quarterly thing, like, you know, you guys are getting better, but here's a way, you know,
Yeah.
we're still having issues with this.
So I also think it's great that you guys are having like more regular conversations, because I think it's really important, obviously, for sales and admin to be in sync. I think like we're not doing anything. The only like systemized check-in that I have is like a quarterly like admin what do you call it? I guess kind of like a survey with the agents to see what's going really well and what's not going so
Yeah.
well, and having them rate different categories that our admin are going through.
Mhm.
So I do have that. I also think though, with just more regular conversations that you're having, it'll be easier to determine, is it a people problem? If so, that's obviously a training, coaching, or opportunity to promote your team's culture. But then if it's like a systems issue, then obviously looking at scalability of your systems. Maybe you guys have experienced a lot of growth and that's why things haven't been working either on the admin or the agent side. Or maybe it's a lack of understanding. Like maybe like we've had issues where kind of a similar thing where a repetitive thing would happen with agents, and it was because there was a lack of training in the onboarding phase with that particular thing. So I think it's great to have these conversations because you can kind of see then where the gap is. Like, is it a people thing? Is it a system thing? Do you guys need to revamp your training or whatever? So I think it's really good that you guys are starting to do that more regularly.
Yeah, we did, not last year, but the year before, we more than doubled. So, you know, it was kind of crazy. Last year was crazy trying to get things up to where we were. And then we were up a little bit from that spot. But yes, that was exactly what happened. And I came on right when that happened. So I'm trying to fix a bunch of things that happened during that time that it's like, oh, that was a mystery. So
Something else to think
Thank you.
about is like adding to their, like for new agents that come onto your team, like to the 30, 60, 90, have them fill out the forms that you find your agents frequently messing up on, and have them bring it to like the director of sales and or the transaction coordinator, so they can sit down and look over those contracts and then be like, hey, this was really good, or hey, this is how we do this, or this is missing. But if you like have them all like write down, like, you know, fill out like a sample purchase sale, you know, just a fake offer or whatever forms that you guys are having.
Yeah, we
issues
do that.
on.
yeah, one thing is that we just started a new complete revamp on training. So we have 2 new people now, and my TC is like, oh, I love the new people. They're so great. So we knew training was a big problem in our process. And so we're having some of the agents go back and do things that they're doing, but really we started with the information. But that's such a great point, because that was absolutely the problem, was training. 100%. Perfect.
I love this topic, y'all, because I think as a DOO, this was like one of the most powerful questions that we ever asked as an operations team, was like, how do we know our error rates? And because everyone like came together around it out of curiosity. Like I know Janet's like, you are super targeting like some specific areas, but we didn't have that issue. We just came around this out of curiosity, and everyone agreed to track it in the operations team on themselves, right? Like, what's my error rate? And then we stress test each position by taking, so we had account managers versus like a TC or LC, but like pulling away from the rotation of everybody else and focusing it on one person at a time to stress test them to see capacity plus error rate. So at what capacity, like at what queue capacity did their error rates spike? And so it was just out of curiosity, self-reporting, like no one was afraid to self-report. There was no like punitive measure, right? So
Yeah.
it's like if you got an email from an agent saying, hey, I think you missed this, or if a client was like, oh, I didn't know, like even tiny things we considered errors. And I don't think we ever learned more about our operation or our team than when we did that activity, because it was so insightful to see like where were clients getting confused, where were agents dropping the ball as a result of our systems, and then talk about like operations empowered change movement, like because they had done the tracking, they reported on their own error rates, they were seeing their own capacity, their own queue capacity measurements. They then created their own ideas for how to reduce error rates and increase queue capacity. And I just like sat back and watched. It was the best thing ever. So it's such a powerful conversation, right? Like empower them to be curious about their own errors, and then empower them to go create systems. Or like, I had one who was like, you know what, it's this one email like series that I have an error rate at this time period every single time. Can I just go rewrite this series of emails? Yes, you may. Please, thank you. Go do that. And then we saw error rate reduction in that time period, and they just tackled it piece by piece. It was an incredible piece of like operations. Like they're so smart. They just did it themselves once they had their own data. So I think this is such a powerful topic. We don't really talk about it very much, but it's so strong to be discussing error rates and self-reported error rates, like giving them autonomy and like creating an environment where they're not afraid to say, oh yeah, that was on me. I made that error. I messed up.
We started tracking a few years ago. Deals fallen out through the transaction once they've gone under contract. So just moved them from the under contract sheet, if it did terminate for some reason, to another tab. And I just looked back, we had 36 transactions terminate in 2021, and we ended up closing 140 deals last year. The majority of those we did put back under contract, but then just going back and seeing why they terminated, and usually I just put like lending or repairs we couldn't agree to, but knowing, you know, what did we waste so much time on by showing homes, writing these offers? You know, what do we need to do better at pre-qualifying if it's our buyer, or if it's our listing and somebody else brought the buyer, you know, get the pre-approval up front. So just kind of, that's a lot of work that, you know, we got paid on later once they finally did close, and we had to do double the work. Or you know, some people that just were never even qualified that we went out and showed homes to and wrote offers and got almost to closing, and they had student loans or something that came up. So we started really tracking that a few years ago, and pretty eye-opening. So that was a big help. We always train around that every kind of spring.
I'd love to hear what other people are doing. As Megan was talking, I never did something like Megan was talking, but one of the things we did do is every time a client called us, right? We didn't call the client, but the client called us. So they had to call us for some reason. We wrote down the reason for calling. And our goal was to never have a client call us. You're so proactive that a client never has to call you for anything.
That's awesome, Paula. I always say that, like in my role play Rumble group, it's like if the client calls, you lost. It's like so powerful if you can like future pace people. So I love that. I never would have thought of that as like an error rate issue, but it totally is. Like if you count that as losing, that's a great point. I love that.
Tiffany was not able to make the call today. Her solution was she created a jot form that has categories. So like either client care, system, and she sends that out every Friday. And then she has her admin meeting on Tuesdays, and they go over the weekend reports that were turned in from agents, and that's how she handled it. That's why I was curious, Janet. It doesn't solve you're looking at the agents. This was for the admin feedback that she could get, but you very easily could turn it the other way, right? Like you could have a form and have someone just fill it out as it happens, and then it logs it in a spreadsheet.
Yeah, that we're kind of have an open spreadsheet now. That's almost exactly what we're doing right now. It's just like, okay, now what? So we're like, where do we put it? What do we do with it? How do we combine it? You know, something that's easy enough to where, okay, these are all in X category. And then, okay, within that category, there's 10 of the same. And, you know, just so over time, we have a little bit of an idea of like, okay, in 6 months, we should have enough data if we do 75 transactions that we might see some similarities that if we didn't track it, we might not see. So, you know.
Zach, what did you say was on that report that went out from the agents to the admin?
Yeah, so they would do missed opportunities with the clients, like questions the clients had would be a category. So it was like client communication, system issues were all notated on there, or just like general mistakes. And that email is automatically sent out every Friday, and then it's compiled over the weekend. They also do updates. So any updates the agents want to provide go on that form. So then on Monday, the DOO, Tiffany, has all of this information, any updates that they need to do the admin, any mistakes that were made in the category they were made in. So she walked in with the meeting, some real data, and says, here we go. This is where we're at. What do we need to improve? What things did we miss from the weekend? And she wasn't able to make it, so I may be missing some other things she had on there, but that was the gist of it.
So knowing that our error rate is identifying gaps in our systems and processes, how are you guys identifying when you have a gap in your system and process?
Paula, I would love to talk about that. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Oh, okay. So here at our team, what we just did, and I think it really was helpful, I had our transaction coordinator go through our task lists, put them all on one spreadsheet. So exactly what he does or what is expected at each stage in our transaction. We talked about it each point in a meeting, so everybody knows exactly what is getting done at each stage, and we identified gaps and what we need to, where we could improve. And every quarter, we're going to go ahead and review that same task list so everybody knows what's happening, who's responsible, and what we need to fix. And I think it was a really good way to make sure that we cover all bases at every point in the transaction.
Were the agents involved in that discussion?
Yes, so I spent almost like a month with my transaction coordinator, making sure every stage was listed, every action is listed, and then we talked about each step in a meeting with the agents.
That's awesome.
So what?
It really brought clarity for everybody.
So with our checklists and everything, like we do a systems eval of them twice a year. So Q1 and Q3, we go through and go through all the lists of the steps for buyers, sellers, new builds, whatever. But then if we're in a meeting and we're like, oh, you know what, maybe we should add a step to ask this question or whatever it is, like we do it like in our transaction sync, but the checklists are visible to everybody. So what's been checked off for the transaction. So the agent can go look at the checklist for their transaction and see everything that's been checked off and if it's gotten done yet and everything. And then sometimes they'll say, oh, can we add this step or whatever? And like we have it like what the listing manager does, what the cyberbacker does, what the agent does, what the ISA does. Like we have every detail all the way through. It's not just for ops. And it helps new agents too when they're looking at it and going, wait, do I do this or does the TC do this or whatever?
Yeah, as Beth was talking, that's what came into my mind too, having the agents involved. It just adds that clarity of who does what.
And I don't know if anyone's using Dotloop, but all our task lists are attached to where we house all our listing documents. So it helps that each transaction has its own kind of folder, digital, that anybody can see, and you can see what's been checked off on each list at every stage. So I think, I'm sorry, I didn't know your name, who was just speaking, but it helps that it's visible at all times for everybody.
What else are you guys doing or wanting to do and wondering how to figure out?
Well, I have a question. We use cyberbackers. So, I mean, if VAs are open for discussion, I just have a question with respect to people who might use other people than cyberbackers, or do you go direct? Does anybody pay anybody directly? And if so, how you handling the tax implications for that? Do you get the federal W-8 and all of that business, or you roll the dice, or what happens? Maybe that's too big of a question.
I guess the first question would be, does anybody here use a VA not cyberbacker?
Yeah.
We hired independent TCs, I mean VAs.
So you pay them directly in the Philippines?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, you do? Okay, and so you must have, you figured out the tax thing there, right?
Like what do you mean by that?
Well, you know, if you don't have the right paperwork, then you could be liable for ensuring that the taxes that they need to pay to the Philippines are paid, because there's a cooperative agreement between the United States and the Philippines. So it's just a form. I found out because I've been researching this. And so I just wondered who does that, who gets the form filled out, do they understand it? Is it a hassle? All of that. Because, you know, I mean, it's probably 40% that cyberbackers is taking out of what you're paying when it could go to them. So that's why we're investigating something else. So
I don't do any of that, and maybe I should.
you should probably look into it, really. It's only a problem if the IRS wants to say, hey, what is that? So
Yeah.
you know, it's your risk tolerance, really, and you can have them fill the form out. It's just, I don't know how it needs to be filled out to avoid liability and all of that, but unfortunately, in my previous life, I was in charge of HR and tax and all of that for 30 years. So
Yeah.
I have in my mind that must be dealt with. So I'm
Maybe you just saved me from jail, so thank you, Janet.
okay.
Rachel Ocello is who I'd reach out to. I'll private chat her information.
Okay, thank you.
Her 4 or 5 VAs are all hired directly,
Okay.
And her level of detail and knowing her rainmakers, like insane level of detail, I would imagine they probably do something like that.
It's all
So,
legit. Okay,
I
great.
would-
That'd be great. Thank you.
My rainmakers are like the least compliant people of all time and know nothing about that. So
Well,
just saying.
yeah, that's true, but I'm sure you don't want to do something that causes them a bunch of pain down the line.
Yeah, I didn't know there was a form actually. I had no idea.
I can, if I get your email, I'll send it over.
Okay, I'll message you.
Yeah, thanks.
I have a question that is a different topic, but I'm wondering for some of the people with larger teams, what different meeting structures do you have throughout the week? We do a bi-weekly meeting with our sales team and our operations team, and then a bi-weekly meeting with just our operations team. And then the sales team does a bi-weekly meeting, and we're not convinced that they are as efficient as they can be. So I'm just wondering, what meetings do you have? How do you structure them? Who's involved, and how frequently do you meet with the various teams?
How many people are on your team, like sales and operations?
We have 12 people going to be 13 people. And so we have 3 buyers agents, 2 listing agents, and then the rest is operations and lead gen.
So ours is almost identical. So what we do is Monday morning at 10 a.m. we do a listing buyer powwow. We go over the upcoming listings. The buyer's agents pay attention if they have any matches for that. They kind of talk about their buyer needs. And then they do their one-on-ones with our director of sales. And then our success team has a marketing / success team meeting on Wednesdays at 10:30. And the success team is at the listing powwow too. And then I do one-on-ones with the success team. And then we have one monthly all team meeting the first Wednesday of every month.
You do one-on-ones weekly with your success team?
Yes.
Awesome.
They're no
Thank
more
you.
than 20-30 minutes.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you.
Welcome.
Ours is kind of similar to that. We do, we do 2 whole team meetings a week. Our Monday meetings are 45 minutes in person. It's kind of like our sales meeting. And then if we have any vendors that we work with that are, coming in and sponsoring lunch or something, we'll do that. And then every Thursday we have a market update meeting. So this is Zoom, no more than 30 minutes, where in our hub location and our expansion location, our listing agents are talking about the market, and then our buyers agents kind of chime in, but the listing agents have like an agenda kind of that they'll talk about, just so that way all of our like success team, our ISAs, everybody kind of knows what's going on in the market. And then our director of sales does one-on-one coaching every week with our agents. Our lead ISA does it with ISAs, and then I'll do it for our administrative and marketing teams.
We have a lot of meetings, but we're all still remote. So like there's no popping over to ask somebody a question. So we have a daily stand-up that we do our one thing, and sometimes we have games and like team building stuff. Usually it's some kind of training. We're looking at some piece of the MREA or some piece of the one thing or something like that, career visioning, something. Except on Wednesdays. Wednesdays is the sales meeting, and ops doesn't attend that. Everybody has a 411 with their direct supervisor every week. The TC and the listing manager have one-on-one calls with each agent on Monday. The ops team and the lead director of lead gen, we have a transaction sync on Monday afternoon. So kind of after they've gathered all that info, we talk about, okay, what's closing this week? What went under contract this weekend? Which things are we expecting to be under contract in the next couple of days, et cetera, and just kind of syncing up on that stuff. The director of lead gen, the Rainmaker, and I have a leadership meeting once a week. Once a month, we do a bigger leadership meeting with the lead agents and the expansion people or expansion partners. And then the Rainmaker and I have a monthly meeting to review financial details. And then, I'm trying to think, there's some others that the agents do with the director of lead gen, and I'm not in those, so I'm not positive about all of them, but.
Awesome. Thank you.
And then one thing we do try to do is like, we call it meeting Monday. Like we try to front load the week. And so like all those sync calls, all the 411s, that kind of stuff, we try to put those all on Mondays. So everybody just kind of knows, hey, Mondays I'm kind of solid in meetings, and then not, you know, Thursdays and Fridays we have hardly any. So
We do all of our 411s on Fridays. Have you done them on Fridays? Do you have a preference on Monday over Friday for any particular reason?
that was sort of the pattern for the team when I joined. That was how they'd been doing it. And since, you know, as we say, we wrote the book, you know, that's how Jay told Wendy to do it. And that's how Wendy's going to do it. That's sort of what we do. But I like, you know, I start Monday morning, usually Friday afternoon, I like total up my stuff or cross things off or go, ooh, what's not done yet? Let me heads down on that for Friday afternoon, and then start drafting it for Monday, and then Monday morning finalize it or whatever. So, and start thinking about the week ahead. So
For us, the reason we do them in the beginning of the week is because like for instance, Christy, our director of sales, she wants them to set their intentions for the week, and then they go throughout their week, and then Monday she follows up on if they reached their goals, what stopped them from reaching their goals, how can they reach them this week. So that's why she and most of us prefer to do them in the beginning of the week.
Recording in progress.
Great conversation, you guys. Who else has other questions the group can help you solve?
I have a question. A couple of you were talking about your success team. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
For us, it's just our administrative and marketing team, like non-sales team. I actually adopted it from, we were shadowing a team and they were talking a lot about how important language is on the team and just like people's titles and how that impacts their love, like how important, I guess, they kind of feel on the team. I don't know the best way to describe that. But we had taken it from another team and just saying, like talking really positively about, you know, like, would you want a member of a success team to help you in the transaction or like a TC? So like making it in terms of like perception from what a client would see too. So like internally we'll like differentiate, but as a whole, when we're talking about like our admin and marketing team, we kind of combine them into our success team. So that's why we kind of switched over certain titles and the way that we talk about different people on the team.
Yeah, I love that terminology. Was there anyone else that has a success team? Do you do it the same way?
We do, and we do it the same way for basically the same reason. It just feels better to say success team than operations team.
Okay.
So yeah.
Cool. All right. Thank you.
Jess, would you add anything to that?
Yeah, I can. The success, like the way Tom, I know he got it from somebody else. I feel like it was the Loken group that may have started, I don't know. It was a few years back. And they said the success of their agents depended on the team that supports them in the back. So that's why they call it the success team. So that's how it's always been in my head.
So the people that have us direct, the success team. So is your title director of success or is it director of operations? Because it should be director of success, I think, right? I mean,
changing my title to tomorrow.
Exactly.
That sounds really good. I'm just gonna say that.
Yeah, Michaela said we're changing our titles too.
I am
so.
now director of success.
I'm very fresh, not even a month in, and that was one of the first things when I learned that we called it a success team is I said, well, I'm changing my title.
Yeah, that's fair.
What other questions do we have from this amazing group?
I'm curious about what companies, let me backtrack. My team is wanting to enhance our referral partner game. And so when we receive a referral from somebody from out of town, different state, we want to find a better way to show them our appreciation and love. And I know that some teams use some companies that kind of handle I can just click this and send a gift. But I'm curious what you guys are using or what companies you're using for your referral partners.
So
I
I just
have a whole kind of 36 touch around that, just like I do my Sphere, our regular database. And like we got a call in yesterday for agent referral. I looked up her address immediately and sent a $10 thank you card, $10 Starbucks gift card, stating the client's name, they're in great hands. Thank you so much for, thinking of us, and send her a few business cards as well. So I just create a touch plan around every source of business, very personalized. And then also they get, which all of you, quite a bit of you, probably are on that email newsletter, and then also postcards. I think minimum 6 a year. So every other month we do postcards.
We're just reevaluating this today. We had gotten a little over 200 incoming referrals from like agents this year, which is insane. Our referral business, I feel like, has really taken off. But because of that, we have to change our systems and make sure they're scalable. And so that is kind of like a work in progress for us, but we just make sure they're in our CRM. And we use Brivity, so we add them as a collaborator to the transaction. So they get an email, like an automated email, as soon as anything, like an activity changes with that person. And then we use send out cards right now. So we'll send out a card and like a 2-pack of brownies, but that needs to change because of just how much it's grown in 2021. So we're kind of reevaluating something different, potentially even just like making a customized card in Brivity and then having that go out as soon as they give us the referral or something like that. Cause that one's like a postcard is like 56 cents per card, but then potentially adding something onto that. We're kind of like in the works and figuring that out. And then we'll send out a monthly email campaign to them as well. So ours definitely has room for improvement. It's kind of a hot mess right now.
Jen, you said 200 referrals, that you received 200 agent referrals last year. Like that was like new for you guys. So what created the jump or the leap in referrals from outside agents?
I think there's been a lot of repeat ones from 2020, and we have more leverage for one of my rainmakers who that's like his baby is his referral partners. So he's had more time this past year to really hone in and focus on that. He probably talks on Facebook to agents like it's his job. Like I can't even tell you how many connections he has everywhere. So I think he's really just like honed in and focused on that now that he has more leverage for himself. He got an EA this year. And we just have more leadership on our team this year for 2021 as well. So I think that, in addition to like repeat agents who have given us referrals this past year as well.
So we're changing it. We used to send an Amazon gift card with the handwritten note of this client, but 24% of our GCI last year was from agent referrals. So like 200 sounds like easy. But we had the custom printed branded Amazon cards that had our logo on them. And now we've just switched it to Starbucks and again, I did the custom ones that have our logo on them. And then we've got a 5x7 card and we sold this from Seychelles. That's thanks a latte and for your referrals. And then we just put the little dot on the back of the card, stick it on there, address the envelope and send it. And then we do with the agents, we do several touches through the year. So like right now, everybody who sent us a referral last year will get a copy of the one thing from us. And, we sort of figure anybody that already has it, then now they have a copy to share. And then we sent them a lotto scratch ticket last year that was like, oh, we hit the lottery with you, which we just, those are dollar scratch tickets, but we got a lot of feedback on that. That was so much fun. And then if we're ever in person again, usually at Mega Camp, when we're here in Austin, we host a happy hour and only people who send us a referral are invited to that. And then Jay and Wendy do a VIP goal setting webinar in the fall. And again, if you send us a referral in the previous year, you get invited to come to that. So